Hello, everyone, and welcome to our training today. Today, we're talking about funding for minority-owned businesses. A lot of disadvantages that minority-owned businesses have when it comes to getting capital. We're going to dive into those. We're going to decode those. And we're going to talk about a lot of solutions that are very unique for minority-owned businesses so you can get the capital you need to grow when you need it. So for those that don't know me, my name's Ty Crandall with Credit Suite. And at Credit Suite, this is what we do. We help business owners get capital. We help you get loans. We help you get credit lines. We help you get business credit for your EIN that's not linked to your personal social. And we help you improve all the fundability stuff, the secret stuff lenders and credit issuers need to get you approved that they don't tell you about. So we can help you along the way. Our numbers at the bottom of a lot of our slides, 877-600-2487. Reach out to us and we'll see what we can do to help you get funding and credit for your business. Steve, thanks for coming in from Facebook. And Latisha, hello from YouTube. And Susan, thanks for tuning in from Facebook. So let's talk about funding for minority-owned businesses now during COVID-19. Obviously, a lot's happening in our economy, right? A lot of people still need money, and it's very difficult to get money for a lot of business owners. Minority-owned businesses have even more of a disadvantage when it comes to getting capital, and we'll dive into that, a lot of the reasons behind that as well. But again, there's a lot of unique funding options we're going to talk about today that I don't think I've ever talked about before that you're still able to get if you're in a minority-owned business. You just need to know where to go to get it. You need to know the kind of funding that's available, and that's all the kind of stuff that we're going to dive in. So what kind of these disadvantages and challenges do minority-owned businesses face that normal businesses don't face? Well, according to Forbes, there's a lot of major challenges faced by minority-owned businesses in getting funding. And we've got a great article here from Forbes that I put up the link for. And this article echoes findings from 10 years ago by the Minority-Owned Business Development Agency as well. Really interesting studies that I looked into when doing the research for this actual presentation. And you can copy and take a picture of those links because I think they're both worth seeing. But we'll dive into a lot of these as well because there's a lot of challenges that are there that you kind of have to overcome as a minority-owned business before even outside of the aspect of getting funding. So in general, the level of wealth for Latino and African Americans is 11 to 16 times less than Caucasians. This was really eye-opening when I started to dive into this. And white business owners typically have more working capital when they start their business than minority-owned businesses or minorities do. And so this is a big problem because the majority of businesses fail, as we know, in the first 10 years, and the vast majority of businesses fail within the first couple years. It's kind of like almost like a hockey stick, but on the downward curve. It just goes, the failures are significant, almost straight. If we look at a chart that shows us, it's almost straight up when it comes to failures, and then it kind of diminishes as businesses have been open longer. So already a huge disadvantage to even be able to get the capital they need to be able to get the business off the ground. And that's the other problem, is a lack of access to collateral. When I deal with financing, and I talk to you about funding a lot and financing and different options that are available, the vast majority of financing that's available in the business world is collateral-based. It's what we call asset-based lending. And asset-based lending is when you take an asset and you then put that up as collateral to get funding. So we look at account receivable financing and PO financing and 401k, IRA, stocks, bonds, equipment, inventory, all of this, commercial real estate, commercial vehicles, all of the stuff, an asset serves as collateral to get financing. Well, for the most part, banks are not as likely to approve a lot of loans if somebody doesn't have collateral. It's really almost impossible to get SBA loans, for example. And lower net worth means less home ownership and fewer high value assets to see if a loan goes into default. So the kind of assets that are needed for collateral-based lending are really rare and hard to come by with a lot of minority-owned businesses, which really is a big challenge because the vast majority, if I look at all the programs that are out there, the vast majority of funding that's available is in these collateral-based programs. Now, a lot of people tuning in, so I want to say hi. A kid, hello from YouTube. Joel from Facebook, thanks for tuning in. And Kimberly, hello from YouTube. Good afternoon. Kajik and Kashanta and Blessed One tuning in, and Arlette from YouTube. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and thanks for saying hi. So poor location, challenge 3. Businesses owned by minorities in locations that have not traditionally supported new businesses and are not as likely to get funding. In all fairness, this can be an issue for anyone trying to get a loan. But again, the area that you're in makes a big difference. We talked a week or so ago about grants, and there are rural grants, there are USDA grants, there are HUD grants, and these grants really have to do with the kind of area that you're you're in. So per Forbes, when we dive into this, just being in a poor location and having the ability to only open a business in a poor location is another disadvantage or challenge that minority-owned businesses face. Another is little to no credit history. So credit's a huge factor for banks when considering loans. We know that minority businesses tend to have lower credit scores for all the reasons already listed. Banks and other traditional lenders are also more likely to want to do business with entrepreneurs who they already know. So again, none of this comes from me. This is from these links I gave you with Forbes that really talks about the disadvantages that minority-owned businesses have. And credit's definitely one, is that when they dove in and looked at the data, minorities have worse credit than those that are not minorities. And the problem with that is that a lot of funding is based on credit. Look, well, I don't care what anybody tells you in the business funding world. Credit's a really big deal. Even me, that I specialize in teaching people how to build business credit that's not linked to their personal credit, I'll still be the first to tell you consumer credit's really important. To get loans, to get credit lines, to get a lot of that longest term, lowest interest rate funding, credit is a big factor. Even when we look at cash flow financing, which is the most predominant kind of financing out there for people with lower credit scores, it's very expensive money. So it's not just about minorities being able to get money. It's about getting it at terms where it's reasonable so you can pay that back and you don't break the bank just by getting the money that you need. And little to no credit history is definitely a disadvantage or a challenge you overcome. So let's dive into some specific funding here. Now, Sean says, does home-based business fit in that location calculation? It does, because if we think about it, a lot of minorities are in, as Forbes pointed out, in areas that are lower income areas. And so because of that, it gives you a disadvantage, although it's more of a disadvantage in business in general, not in getting money. So that's not going to necessarily deter you from being able to get money. But Shan, so working from home does have disadvantages with getting capital. For example, business credit building, you can't get a Walmart corporate credit card when you work from home. Some lenders, some credit issuers just will not help you with home-based businesses, whether you're a minority or not, just to answer that question. So let's talk about small business funding for women. So grants are a great way to get business funding, but they've also been competitive, and today even more so because, again, a lot of people are looking for cash. So you got to check requirements, and follow them to the letter, and don't apply for grants you don't qualify for. Look, there's a lot of grants available out there, and no matter what class you're in, whether you live in Iowa, whether you're a woman-owned business, whether you're a veteran-owned business, whether you're an African-American that owns a business, there are grants that are specific, a lot of which I'm not going to cover. So you want to do some of your own research, but it's a great place to look because, again, the fewer people that are applying for these grants, then the better chance you have of getting approved. And minorities mean that a lot of the population aren't going to qualify for those if they're minority-based grants. So that gives you a better advantage in a competitive market where grants have now kind of become a little bit competitive because a lot of people during COVID-19 are trying to get in. So let's talk about Amber grants for women. We talked about this the other day when we did a presentation on women-owned businesses and getting funding. The Amber grant is $4,000 a month for qualified female entrepreneurs. You can earn an Amber grant through November of 2020, and you'll be eligible for an additional $25,000 grant at the end of this year, and you can apply every month. You just tell your story, pay a $15 application fee. Bottom line is, if you have a good story, if you're a good storyteller, there's a good possibility that you're able to get approved. And $4,000 a month is a lot of money to be able to get on top of the $25,000. And you can get that at ambergrantsforwomen.com. That's ambergrantsforwomen.com. Eugene says, what about funding for e-commerce? Eugene, 2 weeks ago, we did a presentation on getting funding for an e-commerce business. So check out facebook.com/credit suite. Check out youtube.com/credit suite. And if you type in e-commerce or funding for e-commerce business, you'll access those live streams. And if you're in e-commerce or not e-commerce, most of what I'm going to show you today is going to work whether you're e-commerce or not. But that presentation has a lot of funding that's very specific to e-commerce businesses. So make sure that you check that out. So the Cartier Women's Initiative Award, women running early stage companies, not operational for more than 2 or 3 years, are qualified for this international competition. Early stage usually means before profits are made. And it often means before revenue is even made. You even have a concept. You have an idea. You're not even making sales yet. When they're referring to early stage, it could be that usually once you're up and running a few years, once you're profitable, you're not going to classify as an early stage business. Now, your project must be an entity or original for-profit business creation wholly conceived by your team. Your business must be incorporated to be able to get approved. And the project leader must be a woman, either in capacity of founder, director, general manager, or project leader. And the main shareholder shareholder, CEO, or chairman must be a woman in order to actually get approved for this Cartier initiative. Now, up to 2 co-founders will be accepted, providing that they are both women, and they will be accepted to present the project to the CWIA throughout the actual awards. There are 7 laureates, and 1 from each region will receive $100,000 in prize money. And the 14 finalists, the 2 runners-up from each region, will receive $30,000 in prize money. That's a lot of money. Small businesses, from what we found, that get started up need about $10,000 to get their business off the ground. So that's a lot of money. And what you have to realize about these kind of competitions, these kind of awards, it's all about telling really good stories. And there's a lot of really good books out there that you can read on very good storytelling that can help you run your business if you're a good storyteller. But again, when it comes to applying for grants, when it comes for these awards, when it comes to these competitions, it all comes down to your ability to tell a really good story or to tell your story really well. Okay, most of us as founders have our own stories, right? In my case, I lost everything in the last economic crisis, the mortgage crisis, lost it all. And then my business losses carried over to my personal because I personally guaranteed everything in my business. Then I found business credit, and it's led me to where I am with you today. We all have our own stories, and your ability to tell your story really is a very big factor in these kind of awards and these kind of competitions. And you can go to CartierWomen'sInitiative.com to get more information on that. Now, the Garmin microloans for women, Garmin offers microloans specifically for women in an amount from $2,000 to $15,000. They also offer financial training and support. So I want to bring up a point here because some of the things we'll talk about today might not be specific financing, but there's a lot of support out there, even if it's not funding. There's a lot of mentoring. There's a lot of tutoring. There's a lot of training, financial training and support that you could spend a lot of money going out and paying gurus for, that organizations like this will give you for free. So something to really pay a lot of attention to. I found that sometimes, well, and almost always, information is more important than money. If I have access to knowledge, if I have access to intelligence, I'm able to use that to make many multiples of what I could get money-wise. So again, sometimes that has a greater value than the actual financial reward. Now, consequently, these loans help borrowers build credit, and Garmin boosts a 99% repayment rate. And you can figure out more at GrameenAmerica.org. That's Grameen, Grameen, America.org. So you can find out more information there. And Posta says, is funding possible for music publishing? It absolutely is. A lot of the funding I'm going to go over with you today works there. You also really need to check into crowdfunding, because music publishing and the arts in general are a great place for crowdfunding. Crowdfunding platforms love that. So I'd find some crowdfunding platforms posted that work for your industry of music publishing. And I think those could be some really good options for you as well. And hi, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name, but thanks for coming in from YouTube, and hello from Periscope as well. A small business funding for Native American entrepreneurs. So First Nations Development Institute grants can be a good option for you. The mission of this group is to offer grants that help Alaska Natives, Native Hawaiians, Native Americans, and they help with the applicable application process in addition to providing funds as well. Currently, there are no open grant opportunities, but you want to check back, okay? So a lot of the grants are eaten up for this year, but you still have a really good possibility of getting approved if you're a Native American entrepreneur. And you can find out more at firstnations.org. That's firstnations.org. Now, rural business development grants for Native tribes. These grants are available for small businesses as well. This program offers technical assistance and training and funding for small rural businesses. Federally recognized tribes are eligible, and opportunity grants are limited to up to 10% of the total rural business development grant annual funding. And you can find out more at rd.usda.gov. That's rd.usda.gov. So some interesting funding there. Small business funding for African-American entrepreneurs. National Black MBA Association Scale Up Pitch Challenge, $50,000 grand prize. And again, we get back to more of these challenges, these competitions, these awards, where, as I mentioned, storytelling and telling your story is really important part. Second prize is 10 grand. Third prize is 1,500, and the People's Choice winner gets 1,000 with this. And the association says its purpose is to help newer businesses that have an African founder who maintains equal ownership. So some things to think about. NBMBAA.org is where you want to go, and you might want to take a screenshot of that because it's scale-up-pitch-challenge is where you'll go to learn more information. With that $50,000, guys, that's a lot of money for any of us. And again, the average small business owner getting started needs about 10 grand. So that's enough to get you your business off the ground and get you through a little bit of time. Or if your business is already up and running, then that money can make a huge difference as well. Small business funding for Latino entrepreneurs. Okay, Cameo Financial specializes in loaning to Latino-owned businesses. Get up to $400,000. Get an instant quote and funding within 24 hours. And you can go to CaminoFinancial.com for specialized funding there. Now, again, I talk a lot about funding. There's a lot of other options outside of what I'm going to talk to you about today, but none of this stuff is stuff that I really talk about very often at all because it's very specific to minority classes. So a lot of this, take a screenshot if you can, and also keep in mind that even though, for example, on Native Americans, I've given you a couple different options there, it doesn't mean that those are the only options. It means those are some of the best ones that I found in doing a bunch of research and that our team found in doing a bunch of research. But what you need to realize is that you want to do some of your own research as well, because there's a lot of specialized funding that might work in your state, that might work in your community as a minority as well. And obviously, we can't dive into all that in the webinar, right? There's too many states, there's too many cities. We'd be here all day going through everything that may be available in every single state and community. But again, this should open up your eyes to the fact that there's a lot of minority funding that's based on your industry, that's based on your minority class, that's based on where you're located, the city that you're in, the state that you're in, the community that you're in, the county that you're in. So there's a lot of funding very specific to those kind of areas that you want to focus on outside of what we may talk about today as well. Small business funding for members of all minorities. Try diversity lending solutions from Union Bank. This bank's products are meant for small business owners who meet the bank's designation of minority and are looking for loans up to $2.5 million. Your business cannot have annual sales of over 20 million to get approved. I think that's all of us here. Okay. And fixed rate unsecured or unsecured term loans with loans up to 7 years for UCC and equipment secured loans. A lot of very unique funding for minority owned businesses. I really, really, really think that Union Bank does a great job. They're one of the best funding banks out there I found that specialize in minority lending. So Union Bank is definitely one you want to pay attention to. Loans for up to 25 years for owner-occupied real estate, variable rate unsecured or secured line of credit, subject to annual renewal. So that means you can get unsecured lines of credit that don't need collateral, and you can get secured lines of credit that are based on collateral as well. And Michael says, what's up? What's up, Michael from YouTube? Thanks for coming in. Becoming a partner on the ultimate level next time there's a special bonuses. That's awesome, Michael. I look forward to working with you on that. We don't discount ultimate a lot, so keep an eye on that. But I look forward to working with you on that as well. And we have an awesome partner program for anybody that's interested in offering business credit financing. And you can find out more about Union Bank at unionbank.com/business/lending /diversity-lending. Check out Union Bank. If anybody's in a minority watching this, if you're a minority watching this, make sure that you check out Union Bank. They have a lot of cool options that we found. Small business funding for members of all minorities. Business owners must be low to moderate income. EIN has a micro lending program. Members can qualify from $300,000 up to $1 million in funding. And funding is for pre-existing businesses and startups. So even a startup is able to get approved. And they actually lend to members of all minorities, veterans, females, those with disabilities as well. So definitely one to check into. Financing up to $1 million. Another really cool funding source that I found. And they also are lending to low and medium income business owners as well. So those are all their specialty classes that they lend to. SBA Community Advantage loans for members of all minorities. Business must be in an underserviced market. This program is designed for small business owners who might not qualify for additional financing. This program encourages local mission-based lenders like nonprofit organizations to make loans up to $250,000. And the SBA guarantees up to 85% of the loan, which makes it easier for the lenders that lend this money to be able to do so. Interest is the prime interest rate plus 6%. And it's a good option for minority entrepreneurs who need a large amount of capital. So if the 10 grand, the 15, the 20, the 30,000 we're talking about doesn't work for you, then you really want to dive in and consider something like this, because this is a high dollar amount that you're able to get approved for up to $250,000. SBA.gov/funding-programs/loan. And Brian says, I have a loan with EIN. They report to my personal FICO, and it depends if it's a personal loan, business loan. But Brian brings up a great point here. I always ask that question. A lot of people ask me, hey, does my credit card or does my loan report on my consumer credit, my commercial credit, or both? I always ask, Because what I find, and Brian brings up a good point. He says, hey, look, I have a loan with them. They report on my personal credit report. Well, that's what you want to check, because what I find is that a lot of lending sources report to both. With some of their credit cards and loans. Sometimes they report to commercial, sometimes they report to consumer. So as Brian brings up, it's a good point to ask, especially if you want them to report on your commercial credit, not your consumer, because you're not going to know where they report unless you ask them and they give you that clarification. SBA bailout funding under the CARES Act, the Paycheck Protection Program for all entrepreneurs. And of course, we talked about this. The PPP program really had to do with COVID-19. Billions of dollars set aside for this. The bill authorized emergency funds to distressed businesses. Okay, so again, a lot of things that you're able to do with this, and there's still $130 billion available. So info.creditsuite.com/paytech protection. You can get information. You can also just go to creditsuite.com/PPP. We have a ton of PPP resources there, including my SBA broker. Look, I go through your bank to get a PPP loan. Things have slowed down enough that your bank could probably access the application. My brokers at creditsuite.com/PPP got our PPP loan done in the first 2 weeks of PPP loans coming out, and he got it done in 3 days. From when I sent him the paperwork to when we funded and got our money, it took us 3 days. So the guy's phenomenal. If you need a good SBA broker, his information is at creditsuite.com/PPP. But we also have a lot of video training and other training on the PPP program there. It works great for minorities. It works great for anybody that's looking for money that has actual payroll that was affected by COVID-19. So something to check out there. So entrepreneurs or members of minority groups can have trouble getting funding. We talked about that. And it's harder now than ever with COVID-19. But there's a lot of grants out there for female entrepreneurs, for members of Native American tribes, for African Americans, for Latinos. Plus, there's the SBA Paycheck Protection Program as well. And you can get more information at creditsuite.com/PPP. So hopefully I've given you a bunch of good options. Like I said, in this, there's a lot of different ways that you're able to get money. If you're looking for other ways to get money, get in touch with us, okay? It's free to work with us on the funding side. We never charge you to get loans and credit lines. We work with over 1,000 lenders, brokers, funding sources. We could talk to you about all the funding you can get, and then we'll qualify you at no cost. Okay, we can even place you with the lender, help you get the money. You never pay us a dime. Sometimes the lenders give us a referral fee. Sometimes they don't. But there's a lot of funding that I talk about that I didn't talk about today that's available for you too. If you're in a minority-owned business, feel free to give us a call. We'll talk about that. But again, the other message I want to bring home is I could literally sit here for days and not stop. If I probably need to go to the restroom, there's other things involved for that to work. But I'm saying I could go for days getting into the really specialized funding for minority-owned businesses. But here's what I found in doing a lot of research. It's based on your minority class. Are you Latino or are you African-American, for example? It's based on your industry. There's a lot of very specific funding for minorities in certain industries. And a lot of the funding is available based on your location. It's based on your county. It's based on your state. Okay, it's based on your community. It's based on your city. So you really want to do a little bit of research. If you're an African-American business owner in Tampa, Florida, then do that search. What kind of grants are available for African-American business owners in Tampa, Florida? And you're going to find there's a lot of very specialized funding, grants that don't have to be paid back, and loans that are available just based on your business, your minority class, your industry. Based on your location that you're able to qualify for, that I can't get into it all because it's very specific. And obviously this isn't to tell you about how to get money to produce films in Indianapolis, Indiana.